Hello, and welcome to Superwoman Sundays at 7. I'm Janet Neal, the founder and queen bee of the Superwoman Incorporated. I welcome you, and I'm so excited for our guest today, Gloria Loring. And before we get to Gloria, let me just tell you a little bit, if this is your first time joining us, let me tell you a little bit about what this is all about. The Superwoman comes from my belief in the power of women. I believe that women have the power to change this world when they believe in themselves, when they believe in and know that they have the power to do so. And so I feel it's my mission to do whatever I can to help other women find that power and put it back out there for the betterment of all. Hence, my company, The Superwoman, that does training, speaking, and coaching for women, and these kinds of events. The Superwoman Sundays at 7 is a series every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. And during that half an hour, I talk live to some of the most amazing women that have crossed my path recently, women who are truly superb, who have become comfortable in their own skin, who know what their strengths and talents are, and are using them and putting that positive power back out into the world for the betterment of all. And I thought, I'm telling people all the time about these great women that I meet, and I thought, well, why not share them? People need to meet these women. They're wonderful. They're wonderful examples. So thanks again for joining us, and may I just remind you that for those of you on the call live, that if you've got any questions, please type them in and we will get them asked. So let me take time now to introduce you to my guest, Gloria Loring. Gloria and I met last summer when we were both panelists at the Women at Woodstock conference that I talked about last week, and you can find out more at www.womenatwoodstock.com. And I actually was familiar with Gloria, as many of you may have been, from her work on Days of Our Lives, which I followed religiously back in the day. And so it was quite a thrill for me to meet her, and I found out, so much more about her, and she really is a passionate person, and I know you're going to enjoy her story. So let me tell you a little bit more. Here's her book, Coincidence is God's Way of Remaining Anonymous. And I just love the back of this because it really summarizes who she is, and it says, whether you loved her as Liz Chandler on the soap opera Days of Our Lives, know her as the mother of Robin Thicke, some of you might know that name out there, or adore her as the singer of the #1 hit song, Friends and Lovers, you'll be moved by Gloria Loring's inspiring story. And I have one more thing here. As my mother said, oh yeah, she's that gal that Merv Griffin really liked. So, Gloria, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Merv Griffin, he was good. I did 26 shows in a year, and it was such a huge boost to my career. I was just in my first couple of years of starting out, so yeah, long time ago.
Yep. Well, we loved seeing you then and love seeing you now.
Thank
So,
you.
Gloria, in your book, you talk about your journey. You've had a very interesting life, and I know, spending a large portion of it out in the LA area and being, in the public eye, it's got to be difficult to find who you are because it's so outwardly focused, and yet you seem to have done this. Tell us how you came about doing that.
Oh, when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be one of two things. I remember this clearly. I wanted to be a singer or a teacher, just as long as I was at the front of the room. I think growing up in a household where there was some alcoholism, my dad drank too much, and eventually my parents got divorced when I was 15. And I wanted to be, like as everyone, we all want to be valuable and feel worthy and feel fabulous about ourselves. And I knew I could sing, and people listened when I sang. And so I had this dream, but I also, as time went on, I became aware how deeply invested I was in what other people thought of me. As I say in my keynote address, I say, I lived under the roof of my grandmother's mantra, what will the neighbors think? And so I was just watching earlier today that was sitting and having my lunch, and I was watching that show, Say Yes to the Dress, and the brides will come out and their eyes are all gleaming, and they go, this is the dress, this is the dress, and their mother goes, oh no, no, and then they go, and so they have to, and a wedding is a little different than, but not that different than real life. Like, what moves you? Where is your joy? Where is your passion? Where is your spark? And I've always been, it's been a two-handed struggle for me. On the one hand, I knew and had many of those things that were a spark for me that lit up my life and my heart and my soul. And on the other part, there's the light and the dark. And I had that dark side of, I have to live my life for other people, and I have to give myself away. In my book, I detail, as much as I felt like doing it, what I call a sexually inappropriate contact with my father when he was drunk and I was very, very young. And these things, there are many things, occurrences, events, words, impulsive actions toward us that have a deep and abiding effect. There's a word in Sanskrit. I'm a 24-year student of yoga and a certified yoga instructor. There's a word that I love, and it's samskaras. Samskaras. And I always pronounce it the other way, samskaras, because I think of them as some scars that have happened to us. And we know when you get a scar, the skin tightens up and you get tougher in that area. It's like it forms a bond there to try to make sure you can't be wounded quite that way again. And yes, so it is for our soul and our spirit and our psychology and our emotions and all of that. Those wounds, we get tough sometimes there. We get bound up, tightened. And I think that life is, all of that is a part of the fodder for learning. I mean, who's to say that those very wounds don't help us, perhaps, if we're able to overcome them, propel ourselves in beneficial directions, if we're able to use them that way. For some of us, we might spend a certain amount of time in addictive behaviors, whether it be relationships, sex, alcohol, drugs, shopping, hiding away from the world, whatever it is. But there's that wonderful quote by Anais Nin about there comes a moment when it is more painful to stay tightly in the bud than it is to blossom. I'm paraphrasing there. And I think that's what happened to me. I think a turning point, and we talked about this yesterday when we spoke briefly, and you said, I'd love to know, was there a moment you remember? And I'm sure there are many, many of them. But there was one point when, like, the best thing in the world, one of the best things that could have ever happened to me was that I always wanted a hit record. And I was on the Rick Dees show, and Rick Dees was like, Dick Clark in Los Angeles in the 80s. And I went and did his show, and Friends and Lovers was moving up the charts and getting a lot of attention. And I detail this story in my book, and I heard him say to me, well, this record is a top 10 hit, no doubt. Well, my heart just went, yes, yes, yes. And on the way home, I listened again. He made a little tape, a cassette tape, and I put it in the car, and I listened to those words from Rick Dees saying, this is going to be a top 10 hit, no doubt. And as I listened to them again in the privacy of my own car driving home, something inside me said, yeah, but you'll never do it again. And I started sobbing. Who is that? What is that? Who would say that to me in this moment of great joy? What? And it's inside me. What is that? What is that voice in me, that critic, that joy killer that dwells within me. There was no one else around. I had no one to blame. And I think I have found that as we start to come to consciousness, as we wake up from the slumber of these wounds, these toughened places, we can start to realize that very often there are people in our lives who have been an outer, pardon me, I've got little doggy hairs all over me. I had to move my dogs into the room here with me so they wouldn't bark because my niece is coming back with her son. There are people who come into our lives who become an outer projection, an outer mirror, let's say that, more dog hair, an outer mirror of things we hold within, ideas, unfortunate concepts and myths. We call them personal myths in psychology. And they reflect back to us. A friend of mine called recently and said, you know, my friend, let's call her Susan, my friend Susan said, you know, that I'm not being a good mother because I'm a single mother and I'm not married and I'm this and that. And she's sobbing her heart out, feeling like such a failure. No, she's this incredibly accomplished woman. And yet, this constant, you're a failure, keeps coming up for her. And I said, so your friend Susan said to you the words you're most afraid of hearing. Probably they're the words you're repeating inside yourself. Mm. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's very true.
I just know he doesn't have a father. And you see, her father was an alcoholic. So in a sense, she didn't get the fathering she needed. And now she's terrified her son won't have the fathering he needs. And that this, you know, so people, if we can start, the turning point for me was studying yoga philosophy and becoming aware that we project, and this is also in modern psychology, we project onto others very often exactly what we most need to look at. You'll say, I do this sometimes more frequently than others. I'll find myself saying something like, well, he was just being so selfish at that point. And I go, and now I know really fast, if I criticize anyone else, it's like you do this, you know, you point a finger. There are 3 fingers pointing back at you. Someone once told me, 3 fingers, 3 fingers, 1 finger there, 3 fingers here. And I find myself saying anything negative about someone else, and I immediately stop and I say, Gloria, is that something you've ever done in your life? And I always find myself saying, yeah. Have I been selfish? Yeah. Have I done things that probably in other people's eyes were unforgivable or needed a lot of work to be forgiven? Yeah. Have I been harsh? Yeah. Have I said things that have been cruel? Yeah. I'm so sorry. You know, there's nothing that anyone has ever done emotionally, psychologically, word-wise, some aspect of feeling, emotion, psychology, that I haven't also done. I used to be a survivor, so I was very narcissistic, and everything was about me. And now it's not like I've perfected that. You know, I'm still a survivor, and I still have to do a lot of that sometimes. But I've learned that very often I should just keep my mouth shut, because what I'm about to accuse someone else of is what I'm probably most guilty of myself.
Yeah. You know, you're absolutely right about that, the projections. However, I also learned that we do positive projecting, which we're not aware of also. So anytime you see somebody who you say, oh, they're so wonderful, or oh, they're so accomplished, it's really, you wouldn't even recognize that if you didn't have that within yourself already. So very interesting.
It's the prescription of your glasses. If you want to change your experience of the world, a very wise man said, you change the prescription of your glasses. I find for me, I tend to walk into certain kinds of situations and start to find small faults and picky. Now, I know enough now to keep my mouth shut. and to watch for, well, is that something I do? I talked to my girlfriend about this the other day, Kiki. She's so terrific, and we had a wonderful luncheon. She said, I know. She said, I did it the other day. She said, I went to my daughter. I think her daughter's 19 or 18. And she walked into her daughter's room. She said, oh, this room is an absolute disaster. You cannot have piles of clothes on it. You clean this room up. You are not going anywhere. I can't believe you do this. And she said, you stay in this room until this room is clean and you call me. She went upstairs to her room. She opened her bedroom door and there were piles of clothes all over the mom's room. Oh, okay. She went back downstairs and apologized to her daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's, she's willing to, willing to be humble, willing to be wrong. It took me a long time to be willing to be wrong, and even now, when I have to say, I have to really work at saying I'm wrong. No, I'm wrong. I have to say it several times, so I actually act like I believe it. But that's how some of us survive, and I even have to forgive myself that, and I have to forgive other people that when I see that in someone else. Oh, they have to be right all the time. Oh, yeah, Gloria, that would be what you do. So therein lies when we can start to have a sense of humor about our own vulnerabilities and bad habits and virtues that need to be worked on a little more. I love Ben Franklin said, I have mastered all the virtues except one, humility.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, to me, that's a big turning point. Because once I started to accept and understand in the deepest part of me, and it's been 24 years of meditation and spiritual practice now, and reading, and I'm always reading inspiring things, and I always need new information. And but what I realized that my happiness is my job. No, my happiness is no one else's job. It's no one else's responsibility to make me happy. Not my husband's. My job in this life is to find joy, to find happiness, to find contentment, to find gratitude for everything, to have a computer that I can talk to you directly, to have a lamp, to have two fabulous doggies on the floor, just to constantly refresh my awareness of how much beauty and joy there is in life, and then bring that to everyone else. I still make probably all the same mistakes I did, but a lot of the times now I can laugh at myself, so I figure that's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely a good sign. So, Gloria, let me ask you a question. So, on your path, none of us can do this by ourselves. And was there anyone in particular or a number of people who have really been instrumental in helping you come to these kind of discoveries?
Well, there's so many people, don't you think? Well, people are different, inspired me in different ways. I mean, I had a choir director named Mr. Triplet, who may not be on the planet anymore, but wherever you are, thank you, thank you, thank you. He introduced us to so many different kinds of music. He was feisty, he was snarky, he pushed us, and he inspired me to want to know about jazz, to want to know about opera. So he opened the world of music up even beyond what I knew at that point. It was 16, 17. There are people along the way who have inspired my spirit. Your spirit is your energy, your essential energy. Certainly my teacher, who's from India, a woman from India. Nobody needs to know her name, it's fine. If anybody's meant to know about her, they'll find her. But her, my personal interaction, and then just reading her teachings and being directed by how she conducts herself taught me so much. I came in once, I had a little private, myself and another lady were invited to sit with her, which is a big deal because there's thousands of people there at the ashram. And I was like, ooh, and I went in and I was all like gushy. And I said, oh, I'm so excited. She went, stop that gushy crap. She was like, let's just talk like human beings. Stop acting like I'm something special. I loved that. Her no nonsense. And she taught me in that moment, I saw, yes, don't let people gush over you, because sometimes people, if you're a celebrity, go, oh, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Just call me Gloria. I'm not Miss Loring. I'm Gloria. Talk to me. You know, I mean, she changed all. I didn't have to have the protection around me anymore. She taught me and gave me a personal experience, a deep spiritual experience in meditation. She led me to the practices and taught me how to do the practices that led me to my own internal truth, that I am at home everywhere I go. That there's no one I ever meet who is a stranger. That everyone shares the same essential energy, consciousness, spirit, being, opportunity for bliss and joy. Everyone shares that same inner wealth. So what a great thing. I mean, I'm at a stage now where if I have nothing to do, I go, I can clean my closet. If I have lots to do, I go, wow, I get to do a play. Like last month I did a play, and this month in June I get to do a short film, and play a character with alcoholism and drug addiction, and I get to really delve into my compassionate heart for seeing who she is and being with her, and knowing that in spite of what she's doing wrong, that there's a goodness there at the core of her. It's a wonderful role. So I get to enjoy in interior joy, everything. And boy, I wouldn't trade that for anything, for greater success or more money or more whatever. To have found this, and it took me having all those quiet times, times when I could go to the ashram, when I could just be with family, when I could get through times of friction with other people and have the time to sit quietly in meditation and think about, what does this have to do with me? How did I bring this into my life? That's what I talk about in my book, is that when a coinciding of a meaningful event comes up for you, you don't have to do some airy-fairy, oh, it's the universe. No. If it has meaning for you, that's where you start. What does this mean? What is this asking of me? Well, she came in and she said this wonderful thing to me, and I went, oh, no, but I really needed to hear that, but I discounted her when she said that. Wow, I didn't know. I feel I should discount compliments. Or I didn't know that I have this really angry person at work who's always angry with me. Why is she? It makes me so angry. And these people reflect back to us something we want to know, either something we want to move away from, or something we want to move toward. Do I want to be able to hear something good about myself and say, thank you, as opposed to saying, oh, no, this old thing, oh, no, or, oh, no, I really need, my hair, my face, my neck, whatever. So these coincidings, these opportunities for growth and deepening our experience of who we are and how we are beautiful and good and worthy and honored in the world, come at us all the time. So it becomes adventure when you look at life like that.
Yeah. I love your attitude. It's so refreshing, and I don't know, it's just very inspiring, and I know a couple of people have already written in and said the same thing. So you have mentioned it in this sort of different ways, but since I always talk about superb women leading should-free lives, tell me one should that you have given up in your life.
Oh, well, I think if I ever hear myself say should, that's the should I give up in that moment. That I should, I think the biggest one probably is that I should be able to change anyone's life or make anyone else happy, whether they want to be or not.
Yep.
Coming from an alcoholic home where a lot of stuff just never got discussed because it seemed unfixable, we lose our sense of power. There's a sense of hopelessness and helplessness that even very in deep little recesses, corners, eddies here and there along the river of our being hides to come up and tell us that we're not good enough. So we may go out in the world try to fix everybody else. I've been a great fixer. And I still try to give my best to people, But I've gotten to the point where I now realize that I shouldn't expect anyone to be the way I feel they should be. And that my favorite word now is okay.
Oh,
Somebody, okay. Somebody says, I'm having trouble, and blah, 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 and I might say, well, have you thought about such and such? No, I can't do that. I can't. And I'll say, okay.
yeah.
And then they'll go on. They'll say, and I've lived this and this and that and the other. Wow, okay. And okay does a couple things. It's not sarcastic at all. Like, okay. It's, wow, okay, I hear you. Okay. I'm taking that in. And sometimes the okay just gives us a moment to move from reaction. Well, but you really should, I really try never to say to anybody else you should, because it's just not appropriate and not true either.
Right.
I had a lot of okays in the last 2 years ago. My beautiful sister Peggy passed on, and we had 3.5-year journey. And she would call me, and things would be almost unmanageable, pain-wise or stress-wise or whatever. And I learned to just listen for the first time in my life, maybe. Just completely listen and say, okay, I hear you. All right. What do you think you want to do? I knew there were things I couldn't fix. I had to give that up. I think Peggy was the big one, that I had to give that up.
Yeah.
There are things going on now with friends of mine. And it's not that I'm powerless. They have their power, I have mine. But my power is for me. And all I can do is hope to maybe give them some encouragement to find their own power in that moment, to find their own answers. Sometimes I might have a cool idea that works for a little while, but what I've really come to understand is that each person's journey is absolutely their own. And somebody sent me a beautiful quote recently. Everyone is fighting a battle that we know nothing about. Be kind, always.
Very true. Very true. And that kind of goes hand in hand with this question that just came in, talking about if you've got friction in your life, what's the best way for you to handle it? So
well, there are 1,000 ways to handle it. If you have friction,
without telling people what to do.
Without telling. Well, figure out, what does it say about you? I have found that when it's friction, right, that's fear. You're rubbing up against something that's scary for you. And maybe I'm not loved, maybe I'm not worthy, maybe I'm not safe here. And what will often happen with friction is we might toggle from shame to blame. Shame being, I'm a victim, they're smarter than me, they have the power, they kept the whatever. Do you know what I mean? We back away. Or then there's the blame. Oh, well, she's just being a, whatever those words are. Or he's just being a, so we go from shame, we shrink, we're a victim, we have no power, to blame. And either one of those, being less than or more than, is a lie. I'm just going to say that right out there. You are not more than any other human being as far as your essential energy, your essential spirit consciousness being. And you are not less than. Wow. So when something causes friction, the first thing I do is I say, what is this saying about me? It might say something like, it's usually one of these deep personal myths, like, I always fail, nothing I do is good enough, I'm not loved in the world. There are certain main themes which I got to write this book that's been hanging around my head and my heart and my desk. There's a pile this high of notes called Lessons from a Soap Opera, How to Drop the Drama. And it has to do with this friction, this drama that comes in. So we go from shame to blame. So you could start by saying, okay, am I in shame right now? Well, I'm so, I don't do anything right. Somebody always picks on me, or whatever those ideas are. We shrink. Or do we get puffed up and, well, I would never do that. Oh, you probably have. You probably have, and so have I. So can we come to the middle ground and say, okay, what is this saying about me? Is it saying that I'm a failure in some way, and there's the shame, I'm not safe, I'm not worthy? Or is it saying I'm better than? And then we can turn that around. And this is working with one of the core lessons I'm going to put in my book called Hold It Lines. Hold It Lines are personal myths, but they're an acting technique. That's why it's lessons from a soap opera. When we define a character, we find out what's important to that character, what that character says to themselves, just as we say things to ourselves, default settings. And then I found out that one of my default settings, big turning point, was nothing I do is good enough. So I was constantly making excuses for myself, being defensive, feeling like a failure if I didn't live up to everyone else's expectations, never my own, just everyone else's. And so I had to finally turn that around and give myself a break and say, you know what, Gloria? Lots of things you do are sufficient. Most everything you do is sufficient. And I actually wrote it down. And what is a spiritual practice? It's a practice of where are you putting your energy? Mm-hmm. And so in the mornings I would get up and I'd sit at my meditation and I'd place and I'd read, most everything I do is sufficient. And I would go, yeah, that feels true. Because the idea that nothing I do is good enough, well, that's too absolute. That's not true, right? So anyway, you can start to ask yourself, what is this asking? What is it saying about me, and what is it asking? Is it asking for me to have more compassion for myself? Because very often, if you said to me, I just feel nothing I do is good enough, I'd say, oh, come on. Start being your own best friend. Start saying the things to yourself. If you had a girlfriend who was saying those things about herself that you're saying about yourself, what would you say to her? Write it down. Write yourself a letter of encouragement. I wrote myself a letter recently. We did it as an exercise in a workshop that I did up here with a bunch of friends. And we all wrote letters to the best of ourselves and said, I see how hard you try. I know you make mistakes, but you have to start to give yourself credit for all the beautiful things you do for other people and all the goodness you are finding in yourself. And be willing to make mistakes, be willing to be humble. I wrote this letter to myself, and of course I cried over the letter. But you see, to extend that same compassion to ourselves, almost all of us women would, to a girlfriend, would just be right there and rah-rah and encouraging and inspiring. Sometimes we forget to do it for ourselves. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gloria, you certainly are someone who is inspiring to others and truly knows herself, truly a superb woman. And we've run out of time. I know we could talk for a lot longer, but I just want to thank you so much for being my guest. And again, here's Gloria's book, Coincidence is God's Way of Remaining Anonymous. And your first book, right?
No, well, this is actually, it's my first book that's a memoir. It's a memoir with a message, but it's actually my 7th book because I've created books for people with diabetes, but that was in another arena. So it's the first book like that I've done.
And stay tuned for more.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thanks again. And thank you for joining us today. And next week, my guest will be Stacey Radin, who has started a nonprofit in New York called Unleashed New York, which combines both fostering for dogs and empowerment for girls. It's a really unique organization, and I know you'll love hearing more about that. So thank you for joining us on Superwoman Sundays at 7, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for the work you are doing in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gloria. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.